evening. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much for your patience as we continue to build momentum ahead of our major return on mainstream. This is NTV Tonight. I'm Joram Paul Sonko. For those of you who are watching us via our various digital platforms, we thank you for that particular one. We have plenty of stories coming your way, including Parliament's response on Ugandans that are missing, and then also the Ministry of Defence and Veteran Affairs has also appeared before Parliament today. So we've got many of those coming your way. Just keep it on NTV.
NTV Tonight.
And so it begins. Ministers resorted to technicalities in Parliament when confronted yet again with the concerns of the enforced disappearances. The Minister of Defence, Chiwanuka, responded that the government would resort to a search since the persons were reported missing. The leader of the opposition in Parliament, Joel Senyonyi, had once again raised the concern over the disappearance and torture of citizens. We begin tonight with Jackson Onyango reporting.
The issues of human rights violations touching on the disappearance of persons have continued to plague the government, with the concerns raised on the floor of Parliament, some of the times triggered by another case of a disappearance.
There's a gentleman called Sam Mugumya. He was taken on 26th of August, 2025. It's coming to a year now. Up to now.
The Tuesday sitting of the August House was similar to those sessions in which the government has been questioned on the abductions. The leader of the opposition, Joel Senyonyi, tasked the government to have the missing persons produced in court.
Is it too much to ask when we say, if somebody has committed an offense or is suspected to have committed an offense, produce them in court, not to take them somewhere, beat them up, after several days, take them to court? Is it too much to ask?
Senyonyi decried the torture and injuries inflicted on the victims.
Honorable Chivumbi is now in jail, nursing injuries, and there is a police doctor's report to that effect. The injuries that were inflicted on him, and is getting treatment.
President Museveni has persistently distanced his government from the acts of torture. Museveni reiterated the position only a day ago, arguing that the acts have sometimes been committed by undisciplined security personnel. Sections hold that Museveni's word on torture is the exact opposite in practice.
What baffles me is that this is the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. If he's bothered, why is he not taking action against his juniors who are in government doing these things?
Senyonyi castigated the security agencies for feigning ignorance about the disappearances, only for some of the victims to be released to the police days and months later.
Mr. Speaker, I kept severally raising the question of Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi. After 19 days, he was dumped at a police station. Meanwhile, police had been denying, even in their affidavit in court. They said, we don't know him, we don't know his whereabouts.
The Attorney General, Sam Mayanja, and the Minister of Defence, Chiwanuka, responded to the matters of the missing persons with technicalities.
Abducted, picked, kidnapped, disappeared should not be in our vocabulary.
He said they are missing, so clearly he doesn't know, we also don't know. So we have to find out where, because he called them missing.
Oh, okay.
Since they are missing, we are going to look for them and then come back.
The response by the duo was after the government chief whip, Jane Ruth Acheng, committed to relay the communication to the Ministers of Internal Affairs and the Presidency.
Issue of the people who are abducted. I want to take note that it is not the first time LOP is raising it, and it is not the first time we are promising, but I promise to follow up this time.
The cousin to the Minister of Internal Affairs has promised to link up with the Minister of Internal Affairs. We shall continue asking for updates.
Since the 2021 elections, families and sections of the opposition have reported the disappearances of loved ones and political supporters. Jackson Onyango, NTV at Parliament.
Now, still with Parliament, the Equal Opportunities Commission has called on members of Parliament to consider policy measures aimed at easing the growing financial burden many Ugandans face when accessing health care. The appeal was made during a meeting between officials from the Commission and Parliament's Committee on Equal Opportunities.
The Equal Opportunities Commission was established by the government in 2010 to promote fairness and ensure equal access to public services for all Ugandans. The Commission monitors equity in sectors such as education, healthcare, infrastructure, electricity, employment, and other government services to ensure no group is left behind. To strengthen oversight, Parliament also established the Committee on Equal Opportunities, currently chaired by Christine Lamwaha, to work closely with the Commission on issues affecting equality across the country.
On some of these areas that they highlighted, that we need to come up with laws to close the gaps. As a committee, we'll come in to ensure that we propose bills before the Parliament and ensure that they are processed to take care of the gaps that are existing within issues and matters of equal opportunities.
Today, the two institutions met to review some of the country's pressing equity concerns and identify areas that require urgent government intervention. Addressing the committee, Dr. Shaft Nasa Mukwaya warned that unless Uganda gives greater priority to healthcare financing and access, meaningful socio-economic development will remain difficult to achieve.
A mother who has spent all her earning treating malaria, treating bacteria, treating those things, cannot be happy with the government. And then they think that it's the medical workers in those health centers who are denying them services. So at the end of it all, lack of health care has strong political implication.
Dr. Mukwaya said available research shows that the average Ugandan spends about 39% of their income on healthcare-related expenses, including medicines, medical tests, transport to health facilities, and treatment. He noted that while some families are forced to forego treatment because they cannot afford it, others fall deeper into financial hardship after paying medical bills.
You and me may be lucky that maybe we have medical insurance, but there are those Ugandans who don't have access. So they spend 39% of their money on health care.
Meanwhile, committee member Sarah Babiri raised concerns over what she described as inequitable allocation of government funding to different sports federations, saying fairness should extend to all sectors receiving public resources.
Let me talk about the she-cranes that has been going to the World Cup representing this country. They have been representing this country in the Commonwealth Games. At one point, they were ranked number 5 in the whole world. But when it comes to budgeting, they had zero budget. And football, the Uganda Cranes, was allocated and ring-fenced 28 billion. And this happens to so many other sports disciplines.
The committee resolved to continue examining the concerns raised and explore possible policy and legislative interventions to address the inequalities highlighted during the meeting. Lydia Feli Akulu, NTV Tonight.
Well, now moving on, the race to lead the United Nations is taking shape, and Uganda has entered the contest with one of its most experienced diplomats, but with expectations that the next Secretary General should come from Latin America. Can Kampala convince the world to back Ambassador Olara Otunu instead? Daniel Kibet has the report.
Uganda has officially entered the race for the United Nations top job. In a Monday meeting with ambassadors representing members of the UN Security Council, President Yoweri Museveni formally presented Ambassador Olara Otunu as Uganda's candidate for Secretary General. The president later wrote on X that Otunu possesses the experience, integrity and diplomatic credentials to lead the United Nations, urging diplomats to relay Uganda's endorsement to their respective governments. Otunu is no stranger to international diplomacy. He enters the race with decades of diplomatic experience.
I served as Uganda's ambassador. I was in the Security Council, the General Assembly. I was chair of the Commission on Human Rights. A lot of the big bodies, global negotiation, new economic order, new security order. I was involved with most of those discussions. I've also served in most of the key commissions, international commissions you'll see in my bio note over the years, which have been wrestling with issues of peace and security, issues of development, issues of human rights. I've been a member of most of those commissions. Later, I served as president of the International Peace Academy, now called International Peace Institute, which is a helpmate to the UN, an institution that is autonomous but works closely with the UN on issues of peace and security, doing research, doing training, and being a think tank for the United Nations.
Yet, Uganda's campaign begins relatively late. Many countries have already declared their candidates, while informal consultations among UN member states have been underway for months. That has raised questions about why Kampala waited this long to officially launch its bid.
Ambassador Adonia Ebere, you said the president gave you about 24 hours to ensure that Olara Otunu has been nominated. Could you please tell us why Uganda decided to nominate Olara Otunu so late in the process?
I think that can best be answered by the president because for us we received marching orders. But I want to add that it's actually not late. I think Dr. Otunu will agree with me that in the past selection of the Secretary Generals, there are names that have come out late, including the current Secretary General, Antonio Guterres. He was the last one to bring in his candidature. I think what is important is that he gets a chance to engage member states and present his vision.
What is the concrete diplomatic strategy to overcome the widely held view that it is the turn of Latin America, and how does Uganda plan to secure enough support among the 5 permanent members of the UN, of course, of the Security Council rather, who hold veto power? I know that there is for sure no written rule in the UN Charter about regional rotation, but the position has historically rotated among the world's 5 geographical regions.
I think the only region that can claim to not have produced a Secretary General is Eastern Europe. Latin America has produced a Secretary General and many other regions. I think that formula has been thrown up in the air by the way the Secretary General is selected, and there is no exclusive turn for any region, any of the regions.
I think most member states, from what I hear, would say where we are at the UN right now, where we are in the world right now, the challenges we are facing, that perhaps the most important consideration is to look across the globe and get the best person available to help the UN and help the world.
More immediately, Otunu must survive a series of Security Council straw polls before avoiding a veto from any of the Council's 5 permanent members, that is China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States.
I think my background experience is very, very rich, very diverse. Most of the issues that needs to be tackled, I have a good idea about them. The member states, I've worked with them all in various capacities, in the Security Council, General Assembly, Commission on Human Rights, all over the place. So I would hope that this might recommend me to them for positive consideration. Let me also say,
despite the diplomatic headwinds, Otunu says early signs have been encouraging.
It's a miracle that Olara Otunu got 2 positive votes. For my life, I don't even know the brave souls, bless them, who gave me two votes. Because of the situation I described earlier, we have not been able to engage the electors.
He now plans to campaign on various central themes, including strengthening global peace and ensuring the responsible and accessible use of artificial intelligence.
The imperative of ending wars, building peace, and preserving peace. That is the central, most important single mandate of the UN. And I think it is by that yardstick that member states, the whole world, the people of the world, judge the United Nations. And that is why I've highlighted in the vision the issue of ongoing conflicts, major conflicts, very, very important.
Uganda has now assembled a high-level diplomatic team to take that message across the world. Former Prime Minister Ruhakana Rugunda has been appointed to coordinate the country's international lobbying efforts. Uganda's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Adonia Ayebare, says the government will spare no effort in mobilizing support for Otunu's candidacy.
Why is our team still in Kampala when the process of selecting the Secretary General has already started? The reason is that there are 3 countries, Uganda, South Sudan, and DRC, who are on the ban list, Ebola ban list for the US. People from the 3 countries cannot enter the US in a normal, routine way. So we've had to cool our heels here, discussing with Washington and petitioning for a waiver to make it possible for us to leave Kampala and go to the US.
We already got the clearance to travel. We already got the clearance. I think by the end of this week, we will be in New York to engage the member states. And I think the straw polls are an indicator. They are not really, and every candidate got a negative vote from the P5. So the race is wide open.
The road ahead remains uncertain. Beyond building a global coalition, Uganda must convince the Security Council that its candidate can unite a divided world at a time of growing conflict, geopolitical rivalry, and rapid technological change. Only then will Olara Otunu's bid move from Kampala's diplomatic ambition to the world's highest international office. Daniel Kibet, NTV.
Now, that report by Daniel Kibet switches us to another diplomatic report, because after Uganda won a bid to host the headquarters of the African Union Humanitarian Agency, government says it is yet to start construction. According to the Minister of ICT and National Guidance, government will finance the construction of the agency's headquarters and meet the cost of renting temporary office space for technical teams as construction gets underway. The combined expenditure of renting and construction is estimated at $86 million, more than 322 billion shillings, while the African Union and its member states will finance the agency's operations. Government says all of these headquarters will strengthen the country's position as a regional hub for humanitarian coordination while creating new economic and employment opportunities.
The African Union Humanitarian Agency is going to be constructed in Uganda, in Lubowa. So the headquarters will be in our country. And this will constitute a long-term investment in Uganda's diplomatic influence, economic development, and international profile. The African continent continues to grapple with the effects of conflict, displacement, climate change, public health emergencies, and natural disasters. The agency is expected to become a central institution within the African Union architecture. The host country, which in this time it is Uganda, will inevitably emerge as a focal point for continental dialogue, policy development, coordination of humanitarian interventions, and engagement with the international partners. It will attract a steady flow of diplomats, humanitarian experts, development practitioners and consultants, researchers, and government officials from across Africa and beyond. This will increase demand for accommodation, transportation, conference facility, banking services, legal and professional services, healthcare, and other support industries. The resulting economic activity will ultimately translate into employment opportunities for Ugandans and contribute to increased foreign exchange earnings through spending by international staff, delegates, and visitors. Cabinet took a decision yesterday that it should be done in a phased manner. Government should first rent for the technical teams as construction also commences, which should be concluded within the next 2 to 3 years. The issue of money to be spent by the bill to be met by Uganda alone or with other countries, they are phased in a phased manner. The issue of construction, the bill will be met by Uganda only, but the issue of the other services, that will be met by the African Union. That means that all other countries will have to contribute. So we separate the two. So how much will be involved? At the end of the whole exercise, both renting and construction will cost Uganda $86 million US.
Now back to Parliament. The Minister of Defence has urged members of Parliament on the Defence and Internal Affairs Committee to understand and support the National Army whenever it seeks approval to undertake a peacekeeping mission in Gaza, saying Uganda cannot enjoy peace in isolation from other parts of the world. The ministry officials appeared before the Parliamentary Committee to brief it on the military's performance during the last financial year, as Juma Kiria reports.
Years of conflict between Israel and Palestine over the Gaza Strip have resulted in ongoing fighting between the two sides, with approximately 75,000 people reportedly killed since 2023, when the last war broke out. While the fighting continues in Gaza, here in Uganda, Defense Minister Chiriowa Chwanuka has asked MPs on the Parliamentary Defense and Internal Affairs Committee to support government's proposal to deploy peacekeeping troops to Gaza.
We'll be coming to you with our peace initiative to go and deploy in the Middle East to support the peace initiative there in Gaza. So we are calling upon the committee to understand that these efforts are supposed to enhance our security here.
He said such a deployment would contribute to maintaining peace and in turn help safeguard Uganda's security.
Is our support in the international space, because these peacekeeping missions also help to enhance our capacity. Number two, to enhance our status, but also that is our contribution to world peace. So we're coming.
It is worth noting that the deployment of the country's armed forces to another country must first be approved by Parliament, and the exercise would be funded by taxpayers. Meanwhile, military leaders have asked Parliament to allocate more funds for the construction of housing for soldiers. They say they need to build 30,000 housing units at a cost of 3.7 trillion shillings, but so far only 1,000 units have been constructed using the funds allocated.
In our public investment plan for funding over the next 5 years, targeting 6,000 units per year. Unfortunately, in the last financial year, we only got 100 billion between the last two financial years, and we've only been able to put up 1,000 units. Of course, this improves the living conditions of the soldiers, and
MPs, especially those from, has remained silent on the accusations.
But you are having hooded soldiers everywhere. When they arrested the Mwanga Chivumbi, we are asking police. Police says we don't know who is having the person. General Kraije is saying I'm not having this person. Who has? Then at the end of the day, they tell us he's at Imbuya under the other doctor treating him after he was beaten seriously. But the doctor is not coming out. But who comes out to defend all this is in your hands. Then in the villages, we have civilians, local defense forces. They want to dress like soldiers.
My question in line with that is, what are you doing as the defense forces to ensure that you execute this mandate in light of the public outcry on the violations of rights in Uganda today?
So I want us to be very clear that we may have some issues and some challenges, but the public out there has said they trust the UPDF. So Honorable Malende, you can be sure we are going to work on all the other issues that we may have.
The MPs also urged the ministry to stop its officials from misusing the uniforms. Juma Kiria, NTV.
Now, elsewhere, the youth delegates across the country under the National Youth Council have given an ultimatum to the Youth Council and government to convene the National Youth Council without fail urgently. The youth group, led by Kayunga District Youth Chairperson Mebo Beinomjisha, is concerned that the National Youth Council leadership, led by Daniel Ongom, is not involving the youth in this year's council meeting, which happens every year on 11th August. They talked to the press, and this is what we gathered.
So we call upon the National Executive Committee Chairman Ongom Daniel to send us an official invitation for the National Youth Council, which is supposed to happen on 11th August. He should sit with the relevant stakeholders, as said the Secretariat, the State Minister for Youth and Children Affairs, and the other relevant government stakeholders, and invite us for the National Youth Council. Failure to do so, Ongom Daniel and his entire National Executive Committee are going to face an impeachment.
We also say that there is nothing for the youth without the youth. You can't say that you're having Youth Day celebrations and you're not celebrating it with the stakeholders as the delegates of the youth.
So we are calling upon the Minister, Honorable Akisa, and the Senior Minister, plus the President, to include the youth of this country in International Youth Day celebrations that always happen on 12th of August.
Well, now that does it for the news from the world of politics, and we now turn our focus to the world of business. The next phase of urban infrastructure investment is extending beyond easing traffic to influencing where businesses will operate and trade will expand. Under the Greater Kampala Metropolitan Area Urban Development Program, roads, markets, and supporting infrastructure are increasingly being planned as one investment aimed at unlocking new commercial centers across the metropolitan region. Betty Ndagire has more. Now, once again, Uganda's leading insurer, the National Insurance Corporation, now finds itself in a precarious position, switching hands from Nigeria's industrial and general insurance to local asset manager Cornerstone. The transaction presented before shareholders gives Cornerstone a commanding 73% stake, as the incoming director, Professor Samuel Sejaka, frames the deal not as a mere change of shareholders, but as the homecoming of a local giant. Now, today, National Insurance Corporation market capitalization stands at 15 billion shillings, with its share price at 7.3 shillings.
Nigeria's industrial and general insurance has transferred its 64.95% controlling stake to Cornerstone, which now carries the mantle of reviving National Insurance Corporation. Once dominant, the company's market position has slipped sharply, leaving its valuation at 15 billion shillings. The pressing question of strength.
To be precise, 64.95% of the shares which were held by IGI have been acquired by Cornerstone. But Cornerstone also had some shareholding. So as I speak, the shareholding of Cornerstone is about 73%, which is a controlling stake. From being partly Nigerian owned, it is now fully Ugandan owned, and is one of the fully owned Ugandan businesses. So we are going to bring international solutions to local problems. So that is part of our strategy. We want to understand Omuntu wa wansi. The company has a lot of assets which are underutilized. So we want to sweat these assets. So there's going to be a program of redevelopment. And as part of the investment that we have done as Cornerstone, we hope that we can invest up to 50 billion in these assets, including this particular building.
The new owners must streamline internal operations if they are to break even.
At the time of privatization, this company was number 1. It now stands at number 17. I want to assure you that we will work towards regaining our market position and market share. We will work with management and the board to rationalize and restructure the business. That involves increasing efficiency, as well as introducing digital channels. Today, the world is on your phone.
In the financial year ending June 30th, 2025, National Insurance Corporation closed with a 1.2 billion shilling loss, a stark sign of how far the company has sunk.
NIC Insurance General grew by about 5% in 2025, the report that we've just shared here. but the industry grew by 15%. So you can see that we grew at a rate below the market rate. With respect to dividends, yes, we do understand that the shareholders expect a return. That's the reason why they've invested in this company. But because we are trying to preserve cash to turn around the operation, the directors deemed it fit not to declare a dividend this time. We are trying to re-establish our balance sheet, a strong balance sheet, take out all toxic assets from the balance sheet so that we have a very strong foundation.
Rachel Nabisubi for NTV.
On our report regarding the Kampala Metropolitan Development Project, but we shall have it uploaded on our social media platforms on the website at NTV Uganda, and then we shall as well give you more of the details on YouTube for those of you who are wondering where it is. Now, moving on, we put our focus on the world of sport. State Minister for Veteran Affairs, Grace Akizize, has today appeared before Parliament to give an update on the works at the Nelson Mandela National Stadium. The venue is one of the major hosts for next year's 2027 Africa Cup of Nations that will be hosted in Uganda, Kenya and Tanzania. It is being upgraded and work is expected to be done before next year's June 18th kickoff.
To quicken the process, we've had to bring in subcontractors so that we are able to do the work in the shortest time possible, because they are expected to, AFCON is supposed to come and check the progress in end of this month, August, and our deadline is for completion is December. So we are working round the clock to make sure these things are done, and one of the measures we've put is for the teams to work 24 hours. So we have a shift for daytime and a shift for nighttime. Our speed sometimes is also dependent on other factors, like the equipments that we're supposed to use that have to be that were imported. We've been receiving them in a phased manner, and so many containers are on the way coming. Some are already in Uganda, and others are on the way coming, depending on their need. Some of the challenges we had and which were addressed were like the demand on steel was high, and our supplier had a bit of was a bit slow, not slow, but he was quite. We needed more than he could do as at that time, so we had to make him produce what our need was, and that has so far been fixed, and we are getting steel as should.
Well, away from that, still with matters football, stakeholders within football across Uganda are expected to converge in Kampala next month for a two-day football governance and business summit, which is aimed at strengthening governance, professionalism and legal awareness within the sport. The summit, scheduled for September 3rd and 4th at Bamus Sarova Portico Hotel, will bring together administrators, players, agents, lawyers and other key actors to discuss player welfare, football business, dispute resolution and compliance with FIFA regulations.
This is a platform that gives us a chance to engage in issues that we have identified from the world of football in the previous seasons, from home and beyond, and see how we find solutions to our problems, or even see how we bring in new ingredients that could help improve the football sector in our country. So this summit, because previously what would happen is that CEOs and club chairpersons would go and sit somewhere and discuss how next season would roll out, or even the regulators, even the FIFA, but they wouldn't involve every stakeholder. But this summit gives us that chance that we come together, see what our problems are, find solutions for them, and then go into the next season when we are all collectively involved in the democratic process of finding solutions to the football issues in our country.
We're expecting all football stakeholders to be part of this. So we're talking about parents of minors, we're talking about players, we're talking about football agents, we're talking about sports lawyers like myself, We are talking about the Uganda Premier League, we're talking about FIFA, we're talking about investors, and these investors are not just media, but even people who are into sportswear, people who are into every kind of sports investment. We expect them to be part of this summit because these are conversations that are going to change the ecosystem of the of football in Uganda and East Africa at large.
Matches, they're not quite a big number, but you look at the lucrative organization, the football, the clubs, and the administrators, and then of course the coaching, then the player welfare. Look at how the federation and the league are trying to treat players, the medical scheme. So all this, when you combine them all together, you clearly see that.
We now put our attention to swimming. Dolphin Swim Club emerged boys champions of the Hearts Invitational Swim Gala for a second time, clinching 482 points, while Black Panther Club managed 412 to top the girls category. The two-day event, the fourth edition of its kind, is intended to give youngsters more competitive time in the sport of swimming as well as promoting talent.
This gala is very important for the kids because we get to be a role model to them and show them how to do it, to inspire them to swim better and to train harder. It's also important because we get to train more and see where our performance level is at, so we can go back in training and fix some mistakes we have made.
I think this gala is important for juniors because it will help them improve their times and learn from the older people like us, so they can learn the importance of swimming. It would also help them, encourage them to swim better and also give them training purposes.
A very huge turn-up. We had over 700 swimmers and we've had over 30 clubs that have taken part. And I'm glad to tell you that we have Gators that came up third, we have Black Panthers came in second, and then we have Dolphin Swim Club that are taking this championship for the second year in a row. Thank you, coaches. Thank you, Uganda Aquatics. Thank you for being part of this event.
Thank you very much for being part of our bulletin on this day, the 4th of August 2026. Our digital bulletins tomorrow will mark a week since we kicked off our journey back to giving you news and daily updates as they come. I'm Joram Paul Sonko. For more updates, continue following NTV on the digital platforms including Facebook, X, Twitter, or YouTube as well, and then the website www.ntv.co.ug/news. From the entire team behind the scenes and the editorial at Nation Media Group, till tomorrow, have yourselves a good evening and a good night.
TV Tonight.